right, well, good morning, and thank you for coming. Welcome to MOOC or Not, and how community colleges can leverage some of the new community college ICT programs in particular can leverage some of the new interaction models that are coming out with MOOC development. I'm Daly, the Director of Community College Outreach at the Open Courseware Consortium, and I'm presenting with Dr. Preetha from Open Study and also from Emory University. Just briefly, a little bit of background about me. This is my fourth time presenting at the MPIC conference, and I worked on the College Open Textbooks project at Foothill De Anza, and the Community College Consortium actually came out of the Foothill De Anza College District originally and has moved to the Open Courseware Consortium. But primarily our focus is the same. It's community colleges trying to enhance teaching and learning through promotion of OER. Prior to getting into higher ed about 5 or 6 years ago, actually, I was a software engineer and manager. So I worked at Apple and 3Com and Motorola over many years. I won't go into the number of years. But so I always love coming to the MPIC conference because this is kind of back to my old stomping grounds, and I get to hang out with the geek squad, as it were. And I want to give Dr. Preetha a chance to introduce herself as well before we get started.
Hi, I'm Preetha, and I have 2 hats. I am currently on leave from Emory as their Associate Dean for Science. And the reason I'm here in the Valley is I have a startup, and I'm going to talk about my startup, Open Study, which is all about connecting learners with folks who can help them.
All right, thanks, Preetha. We have quite a few of you today, and we're starting a little late. Otherwise, normally I ask people to introduce themselves. What I will, I guess what I'll ask is, how many are teaching in ICT in community colleges? Okay, so that's about 85, 90%. And California community colleges, okay, about 50%. And so the rest of you are from Rhode Island. Okay. Okay. Are any of you participating in MOOCs right now, either as a student, a learner? Okay, Mike over there is. I'm not surprised, and you are as well. And any of you looking at teaching MOOCs? Okay, wonderful. Great, great. And we'll talk a little bit about what's been happening in that space. All right, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Community College Consortium before we get into what MOOCs are for those of you who might be less familiar. And things have changed a lot in a year. And then kind of the vortex of where community colleges and MOOCs are coming together. And then Preetha's going to share with you Open Study, which is a peer mentoring and tutoring system that can really support students who are in MOOCs or who are in traditional classrooms as well. So the Open Courseware Consortium, which is really it's the leading global organization supporting open ed worldwide. It was founded originally about 11 years ago at MIT. And its mission there was in advancing formal and informal learning through the worldwide sharing and use of free, open, high-quality educational materials, and organized as courses. Of course, that has changed a great deal over the last decade. It encompasses open textbooks, open videos, open practices in general, and really supports open policies, both at the college level and also at the country level. And now it spans 46 countries and over 300 institutions. And as I mentioned, the community colleges just joined a year and a half ago. Before that, Open Courseware was more focused on the 4-year in the university. So there's 109 community colleges in North America that are members of our consortium, but many more participate on a regular basis. And that gives you kind of the spread. And we invite all of you to join us. There's a sign-up sheet going around. There's a number of people in the room here who participate regularly on our advisory board. And one of these days, hopefully, we'll become members officially. So our mission is promoting use of OER to enhance teaching and learning. And it's about expanding access for our students. And At the community college, that's a little bit different than it is at the university level because we're looking really to support our students, whereas MIT is looking to provide materials worldwide to people. And it's not that our open materials couldn't be used worldwide as well, but we're really focused on expanding access for students who are coming to the community college. And we do this through a number of activities, but our primary one is professional development for faculty. We have monthly webinars which feature primarily community college leaders who are engaged in OER, but sometimes they're from the other sectors. And but the focus will be on how it's applicable to community college. And the handout that I sent you around earlier tells you about our fall webinars. And those are all archived, but there will be another series in the spring. So now to our main topic, which is 2012, the year of the MOOC was declared by the New York Times in November. Well, I suspect that a lot of you probably didn't know what a MOOC was about a year ago. Let's say December, January of last year was just starting to hit the press. And so Udacity and edX probably hit about the same time. Many of you probably heard about the Stanford Artificial Intelligence course, right? Offered last fall. Yeah, 160,000 people registered, and I'm forgetting now what the number of completion was. It was in the more in the 4 digits, like 2,000 or 3,000 students completed, but still impressive. Dr. Sebastian Thrun left Stanford teaching at that time and started Udacity because he said, you know, it's not, he says, I can't go back to teaching in the regular classroom. After I've taught thousands of students online and seen their dedication and passion. edX is the Harvard-MIT collaboration, and they've offered a number of courses as well. And these are primarily in the ICT space, right? So robotics, machine learning, human interface, human interaction, etc. Coursera has, of course, grown enormously over the last year, and they are also started out of Stanford in the computer science department. But over the last year, more than the other two, they have really started to span the disciplines, and they now have humanities, social sciences, math, etc. So they've really grown even more widely. But all of this is pretty confusing, to be honest, because every month it changes, and sometimes it's just weekly. There's new people being added to Coursera's roster of universities that offer MOOCs. So I'm going to just go back to basics. MOOC, of course, stands for massive, so it's thousands of students or learners. Everything is online, from registration, videos, quizzes, social networking, so the discussion forums, etc. It's open enrollment. In some cases, it's open content, but that is changing. So with the for-profit MOOCs that are coming out, and Coursera and Udacity are for-profit, the content is no longer open. The access is open, so you can register, and that could be changing in the future. So in terms of it being a course, there are expert facilitators who present the course, if you will. Credit is still up in the air. Udacity has made some movement here using Pearson as a testing center to provide credit, but for the most part it's still an open question on how they're going to do credit. And this is kind of a useful chart to show you. It's actually out of date now. Justin Reich from the Berkman Center put this together about 6 months ago to show on the left-hand side we have what are considered the traditional MOOCs. You see Udacity, Coursera, which are the for-profits, and underneath that you see edX. But their strategy is that learning can be delivered to students through optimized algorithms. So it's kind of a passive approach, if you will. It's a very traditional approach, actually. And then on the other side, we actually have, and I'm sorry I forgot to mention on my last slide, that MOOCs actually started in Canada in 2008. How many of you know that? Okay, so we got running back. So they started it at the Damascus University, and they were really a learning experiment to see how social learning worked. And learning wasn't delivered to students, but it emerged through these social learning experiences, which is a much more innovative approach to learning, and something that really resonates more with the 21st century model. And that would be the folks on the right-hand side and what's referred to as Dewey. Yes,
okay, Pat? So it just applies to those two on the right-hand side. Everything you have a question? in your chart.
Okay. So Pat was asking about the difference between the two sides.
So the learning delivered to students, optimized algorithms, everything on the left.
That's correct. And then within the difference there is that Udacity and Coursera are for-profit, and MIT X and edX are not-for-profit. So any questions about that? Sorry, that was a whirlwind tour. So, you know, the press deals with this in various ways, between cheering it on as the disruption to higher ed and then pointing out that, oh my gosh, nothing is working. And the four main barriers that you hear about is, well, there's no revenue model. Nobody's making any money right now, but if you listen to Coursera and Udacity, they believe that they are going to be making money. Credentials for students, as I mentioned earlier, is still up in the air. Course completion rates are abysmal, and for a number of reasons. And Preetha is going to address this more, is how do we support students in this kind of model, or even in a large online traditional classroom, and student authentication. And today we're really only going to talk about the course completion rates and how to improve the learning experience for students. So just showing you what the current rates of completion are. They are quite low. Coursera has reported 7 to 9%, Udacity under 25%, edX under 5%. Now some of these are based on their offerings last spring, and some are this fall. Duke University offered a bioengineering course through Coursera this last fall and had a 2.5% completion rate. So we know that this is certainly a room for improvement. And as different methodology is coming up with to support the learning experience, there are items that are generally applicable to our programs as well. One interesting MOOC that was developed this fall is called the Mechanical MOOC, and it's all about learning Python. And it's a very lightweight MOOC. Are any of you aware of this one? Okay, a few of you. So it's spearheaded by Peer-to-Peer University, but it's a combination of 4 open web-based approaches. They took the MIT Open Courseware, which is a course, Gentle Intro to Python. It's like 600.
6.189.
Thank you. Preetha's been very involved in this. It combines interactive coding tools from Code Academy, which are free, open, so kind of like an IDE. And then Peer-to-Peer U does some kind of scheduling of an emailer on a weekly basis. I'm enrolled in it, but not doing too well with Python, I have to admit. And OpenStudy really provides the learning community that these students can go to for support on their assignments and just generally to support each other. And it's a little early. We're into the second session right now. Do we have any numbers on that one? I haven't seen them published.
I'll talk about that.
You'll talk about that. Okay, wonderful. Well, not too surprising, the Gates Foundation has gotten involved. As you know, over the last couple years, the Gates Foundation has really been focusing on community college completion rates and cost, and has been doing some good work. Are any of you involved in any of the Gates Foundation, the Next Generation Learning Grant? So we have one person back there. So they've been looking at this MOOC revolution that has happened this last year, and they have decided to fund research into MOOC practices as they would relate to in the classroom, so at our community colleges. And in particular, they funded 14 institutions, about 4 are community colleges. Their focus right now in terms of the courses is developmental math and developmental English, but their research is going to apply generally to MOOCs, so would also be in the ICT area. edX is also doing work with some of their local colleges in Massachusetts, but through Gates funding, to experiment with bringing ICT in, because obviously edX is very focused on the ICT space with their machine learning. And in fact, there's a California college, Mount St. Jacinto, has the developmental English Gates Foundation grant. So there's going to be a lot more research and information about effective practices in large online courses, whether they're in the college or in a MOOC environment. Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't get our slides merged here. I want to turn this over to Preetha to talk to you more about some of those effective practices.
It's only fair if you get my PowerPoint up here.
There, thanks. You want me to hit your slideshow, please? Thanks.
Press F5.
F5.
There you go.
Clearly we're not PC users. Well, thank you so much, and I'll go right into where she set up the stage for me here. Our focus in Open Study was very clearly the student interaction, the peer interaction, and when we approached this, the only problem we wanted to solve was when a student raises his or her hand for help, how can we provide that help? And we investigated, with the help of NSF support, we investigated where students are raising their hands for help. And you know this, quite often, it's not outside your classroom, certainly not outside my office hours or your office hours, and that's because the nature of students today is changing. They're non-traditional. They have lives. They need to go back home, take care of their children, cook, do another job, whatever it is. And so if there is no match between that office hour and their need, quite often those needs get unmet. And so what we proposed to the NSF at that point was we want to be where students are today, and which is, where are they on today? Very much online. And that is the reality of the situation. The problem that we wanted to look at also was that you have high school dropout rates that are astonishingly high. Community college student graduation rates are not the greatest. And then this, and I won't go very much into this, but this was certainly a driving factor sort of halfway into our project, which is what can we do to help the fact that these college graduates, even when they do graduate, don't end up getting jobs. And we were informed by research that came out of the White House that said, can you provide students with a different kind of an academic experience that keeps them engaged, thinking about academic things, but not necessarily in the traditional classroom format that they've already sort of been turned off from. The other thing that we noticed was more than the academic factors that contribute to failure rates and lack of graduation, it was these two other factors, psychological and financial. So we were coming at it thinking, what can we do to support the student in a more supportive, and address some of these psychological issues. And where we came at was, we encountered young individuals, and this is just one of them, who would come to us and say, I was failing in math, but someone on your system, on Open Study, came and helped me. And for this young gentleman, Sergio Alvarez, a ninth grader in New York, it made a difference for him from failure and success, and all that it took was an individual. Some individual, no PhD, probably no teaching credentials, but someone who knew enough math and who had the inclination to say, I will help you, ask me your questions. And that's what we're all focused on. Kind of, it seems a little heretic here to stand in a ICT conference and say, you can build all the best technologies, but and like Courseware and Udacity have, but at the end of the day, you know this, that it is an individual, a human relationship, a mentor, a teacher, a peer that can move that student from a failure to success, and that's what we believe in. So the Open Study community has actually more than 200,000 users. We work with different institutions. Our students come to us, our learners come to us from over 160 countries. And we're really proud of the fact that when over 2,000 questions are asked in a day, more than 70% of them are answered within 5 minutes. And the only reason this works is because we managed to build a community that is large enough and is focused on this problem. So we were supported all of last year through one of the Next Gen Learning Challenge grants from the Gates and the Hewlett Foundation. And for them, Georgia Tech did the research, which I'll talk a little bit to later on, which came back and we found that students actually reported a better understanding when you asked them, how did you do in your courses, did your grades improve? This is a research framework on which our product is built. We believe very strongly in peer-to-peer learning, communities of practice. My background has been in NSF-funded research on problem-based learning, so I'm a big believer in the power of collaborative learning. And of course, social constructivism, getting students to articulate their understanding, constructing their own knowledge, and interacting with others while doing that. So with all this, and this is where we started, and as Yuna says, this is before the MOOC hysteria hit. And at that point, we were only focused on getting students to provide one another with help through peer-to-peer interactions. But as MOOCs began to take off, we noticed that one thing that was critically missing in a lot of the MOOCs early on and even to today is the value, is the peer-to-peer interaction, the engagement, and this you could see in the dropout rates. The fact that when someone asked a question, they might not get answered, they might get answered badly, they might get answered, and this was worse, meanly. There's this notion of meanness in the community, and all of that, we found that, we had an answer in our community that was everything was going well. So we partnered with the Open Courseware Consortium, and what we do now is for Open Courseware Consortium, and we have a few pilot institutions like the University of Notre Dame, University of California, Irvine, and a couple of European institutions. If you have an online course, have the students, and these are open, free online courses that are offered by Open Courseware members, they take the courses online, they look at the material, they study it, but when they have questions, they come to the Open Study community. So at the University of Notre Dame, there's an interesting course on applications of multimedia. People work through the course, but the minute they have a question, they come to Open Study and ask the community for help. And MIT Open Courseware took this to the next step, and I have, when they offered their headless MOOC or mechanical MOOC, what they call the gentle introduction to programming using Python, they brought the content, we brought the community, and Code Academy brought the assessment. So going back to the title of this whole talk, there are more than one way. There are many ways to construct this online open learning experience. Certainly Coursera and edX and Udacity have their model. But for you folks, when you're thinking about your students and your needs, you should know that you can put a similar sort of an experience, why similar, maybe even a better experience together by adding the various components that you need. There's content, there's interaction, and then there's assessment. And that's what the MEC MOOC is. So for example, if you go today to MIT's website, you'll find that there's all the information about the course, and over here is the link to the Open Study study group. And they say that in all their literature, that is, if you have a question, don't email us. Go to Open Study and ask, and you'll get an answer. So let me show you what happens. Oh, before I do that, I just want to go back to that research that we found. We find that in our goal, we're all about trying to convert the asker into an answerer. And this is a typical sort of a portfolio of what happens. And I'm sorry you can't see these colors here. But over here, the orange is when the individual starts asking questions. So typically, students come to our site and they have a question. They start asking them. But then over time, and that's I think the blue is the questions and the orange are the answers. Over time, there's a lag. They start to get enough confidence, they're empowered, and they start to answer questions. And over here, all the way here is when you get the win. This is the deeper learning. When they answer more than they ask, and when you look over here and you look at the medals received, and that's the purple graph there, when the number of medals they're receiving for the answers they provide goes way beyond a 1:1. And just a little bit about how these medals are given. Medals are given when someone thinks your answer is helpful or accurate. You can't give yourself a medal, and you, an individual, can only give one medal. So when an answer gets more than one medal, that means there's multiple people out there thinking that's a great answer. And that, we believe, is the core of the whole experience. this is what it looks like. When you walk into an open study group, and this is the one for mathematics, you see two things. It's kind of like walking into a Starbucks for these folks, because remember, online is more real to them than the physical. So they walk into this place, they see who's out there, they have different avatars. It tells them what level they're at, and more importantly, it tells them what question is this individual working on. So here Mr. Amestre is working on write an equation. So if you wanted to talk to him, if you wanted to see what he was doing, you would click on that. Over here on the left, the questions are being asked in dizzying frequency, and it's a dynamic feed, and it tells you who's viewing it, how many people are in there, whether it's got a medal or not, and so whether you want to help or not. This becomes a game for many of our users, which is, can I go and help someone? And if you think about it, we've now incentivized people to go help in math. So that, I think, is sort of the marvel of what you can do with game mechanics. We get into situations where multiple people can help, and we've sort of promoted that in the technology that we've built. We know it's not easy to be in a team working situation, especially online, and we definitely promote that by building in structures and checks and balances. This is the intro to CS, and you can see that people are willing to ask questions, and more importantly, people are willing to give pretty complex help. So here's an individual that's stuck on some problem, and here is this other gentleman, I believe it's a gentleman, who has got an entire code there pasted in order to help the other one. And you have to remember, no one gets paid. It's not about getting paid or not. It's a free site. And people are willing to spend enormous amount of time, because when you help someone and that person gives you a medal, there's an affirmation. We call it social capital, but it's simpler than that. It's just that positive, good feeling you get when someone says, thank you, you helped me. Old-fashioned stuff. This is what we do. So, basically, yeah.
Is this for-profit, or what is that?
It is a for-profit. It's a spin-off of Georgia Tech and Emory University. And because we were supported by the National Science Foundation and NIH, all of this is free. So our business model is, it comes from ads. So all of this will stay free.
And what kind of advertising?
Oh, educational ads.
Education.
Yeah. So, online universities and things like that.
And then I guess the other question is, these are very broad topics. Like, we wanted to do something more specific.
Absolutely. I don't have it here. But for example, if you go to the general introduction to Python, it is subdivided, and you have subtopics. I don't know, recursive loops, conditional statements, whatever the subtopics are. For math, they'd be appropriate. So if you, for example, and we're working with one of the NGLC's Gates MOOCs, we're working with the Tri-C Cuyahoga College on the DevMath, so we're building for them a similar environment which will have their subtopics for their course. So we can certainly do right, whatever is appropriate for the course. I don't have a picture of that, but you can sort of see that. The other thing that we built in through the game mechanics is a system of recognition. It's really important for these individuals to be recognized for what they're good at. And I've always believed that quizzes and grades are just one dimension. And especially for individuals that are, that the education system has failed in some way, we've got to look beyond, we've got to look holistically. So when we go back and we look at our data, we're able to collect through our analytics, through many, many points of, I have that here, over 30 indicators from questions, answers, time in the system, chats, collaborations, medals received. We're able to put all that together into 3 dimensions: teamwork, engagement, and problem solving. So the project we're doing with Courseware Consortium courses is to figure out which users are able to engage with the content in Courseware courses, their open MOOCs, and by looking at what we call their SMART score. So here's a SMART score of an individual, and we can see, for example, that he has asked 403 questions in mathematics. So consider for a minute it's one of your courses, or it's an applied multimedia course. We can tell how often has this individual asked questions in that course, How often has he answered in that course? How many medals has he received in that course? And what's also as exciting is how has that changed with time? We expect people to come in as novice learners, but we also expect that if they've learned, that they'll show a transition upwards. For some people it can be quick, for some people it can be longer. So we're building in this flexibility because we understand that no two learners are alike. Some people learn fast, some people take time. For some people life happens. So this is a recognition system. We call it a SMART score. And based on the SMART score, when we work with different providers, they want us to offer certificates. And so we offer certificates. Feedback has been, yeah?
I have a question about the answers. When people give an answer, how can you make sure that the answer they give is correct? I mean, if the person who's asking the question isn't going to be able to judge, they might think the answer looks great and give a medal, but really the answer is completely wrong.
Absolutely.
Or maybe they're giving the solution to the problem that the student is supposed to be finding out for herself.
Absolutely, and you're absolutely correct. So I have 3 answers to your question. So at the very first level, the fact that we have such a large crowd, so that there's always someone in there, and we built in the facility for multiple interactions. So for example, here you have an individual, he's asked a question, this guy puts out a formula, and here's another individual that comes in, and if any of these things have been wrong, there would be a give and take, and that's built into the system. The second, which is sort of this part 2 of your question, what we've developed over time is this code of conduct, which the community believes in. And so our code of conduct says if you give an answer directly without explaining, then you get a warning. Anybody can warn anyone. So over time, the community polices itself, and you should actually go and see. It's kind of funny because they're saying, I'm going to give you a warning because you haven't explained this. You've just given the answer. So we work on that. And then finally, remember, it's about the peer-to-peer interaction. It's about building engagement, and also about educating these individuals that there's no guarantee that anything you find on the web, even Wikipedia, is 100% accurate. So one of the learning issues is that you have to know how to evaluate this. Because we have a crowd and because we have a mechanism of giving medals, we sort of cut down on the inaccuracy. And then I have a 4th answer, which is we do have experts on the system. They're called moderators. Yeah. But I just put that at the very end. And so we have different checks and balances, but I can tell you this, I can never guarantee that every answer is always correct. But I don't know who can. So I think it's pretty much impossible to do that.
Well, the instructors.
Yes, and so we do have instructors who are on the site, and we welcome instructors. I have a demographic slide, but about 20% of the folks on our site are instructors or teachers, retired individuals, retired teachers, for example, and they form the bulk of our experts, or we call them moderators.
Kind of more of a comment, I guess, sort of bouncing off what you said, is that it seems like this peer-to-peer teaching is happening anyway, whether we like it or not, whether it's accurate or not. And so having it in a space where there actually is some moderating going on, and there is some review and some ratings like they do on eBay or whatever, kind of tends to help people stay a little bit more in line with accuracy and being responsive and different things like that. And what I've heard people say that they're doing this is, well, at least we have some control over it, which is a lot better than it has been.
I really appreciate that, and that's kind of where we're thinking. And remember, I said the win that I'm going after is the engagement, the retention, the keeping someone involved in thinking about math or science or computer science. And something has to give. So I'm confident that the majority of the answers are reasonably accurate. They'll probably never be as good as your answer. But I think there's a positive gain in that, a net positive gain. All right, so these are the certificates based on the SMART score that we are offering. talked about that. So the way we work with folks that are interested in reaching out in an open, in a MOOC or online is we just provide the community for free. The community is available for free. All you have to do is to have a couple of lines of code put into that. Our two biggest study groups are in math and in computer science. Our initial launch was with MIT's Intro to Python, so therefore, and our computer science groups have grown tremendously based after that. And then we work with individuals, and we're open to new projects. We're open to thinking about this. We think this is an evolving field right now, and no one knows what the answer is going to be. So we're all excited about doing the kinds of research that needs to happen. So I think that's pretty much what I have to say. Both of us would be happy to answer questions. Yes?
I looked up openstudies.org on my computer. And
it's not org, it's .com.
.org
is in some
okay.
Eastern European country. And
so it's a typo. Somebody made a mistake.
It's .com. Sorry, yeah.
Then on the home page it says California Teachers. Is that the one?
That's one of our educational ads.
And then it says earn your NEE online.
Close it. It's a struggle. We want to stay in business. We are committed. Because I'm a faculty, I'm utterly committed to keeping this free and available to students. So until we figure out another business model, yeah, go ahead.
I didn't catch it. You said that anybody could have this available by just putting a little bit of code into their whatever LMS or whatever.
Yes, absolutely.
My question is, you had the one example of learning Python, and I'm sure there's others, but is Coursera and others like this taking advantage of this, or are they?
Well, see, Coursera has enough money in the bank to build their own system.
But they don't have this feature.
And they will build it themselves when the time is right.
Well, it's interesting because I attended their session yesterday, and they seem to be, like everybody else in this whole thing, in this development mode, and they could answer a lot of questions about where this was all going.
Yeah. I go to all their talks and I say, you could use open studies.
Right.
It's dynamic.
Oh, okay, yeah.
They can't hear you.
Okay, let me repeat that question. I'm sorry, that was yesterday. Pat would like to know why we're not working with Coursera, and my answer to that is it's a classic buy versus build. So I think they'd rather build it for themselves, and they have the money to do so. So we work with community colleges, we work with other institutions that don't need to build it, don't see the need to build it themselves.
Yeah, I would add that Coursera does have discussion forums and so forth, but we can see that they're not currently being very effective. So something like open study would be very useful.
On the retention issues in the MOOC in general, I taught an open entry, open exit adult ed for credit recovery, high school credit recovery, adult diploma completion, GED, using Pearson's Novanet for 13 years. And a couple of things that I found that were very helpful in retaining students were just having a time management session at the beginning of it, saying, okay, this is going to take some time. How are you spending your time now, and what are you going to give up in order to do this? In other words, where are you going to fit this into your life and into your schedule? And what are you doing in the evening? Are you browsing the internet, or are you playing solitaire, or what? And what's the reward for doing that? And could you take that time and use this for study? And what would be the reward for doing that, so that they can see what they're giving up and what they're gaining, and keep that in mind the whole time through. And it just I had a little thing I did for about an hour and a half with each student as they came in of how are you going to manage your time and your motivation. And that seemed to help quite a few people. And then the other thing is I don't know on the open study how instant is the feedback as to whether they get an answer right or not.
70% of our 2,000 questions are answered within 5 minutes. So it's synchronous.
I mean, is it answered online or is it answered by a person?
It's answered online by a person.
Okay, and how about as far as correcting the work? I mean, for each issue that they have to do, I was using a space that was multiple choice answers so that they could know immediately yes or no, and then they could actually go back and study the part again if they didn't get the answer right.
So let's say this individual had a question like this: how do you find a percent of an item? Almost instantly, someone comes online to answer them, and then that discussion is in real time. So this discussion can continue endlessly. It can continue till a point where the individual says, okay, I get it. So this is real time.
Okay, but just in general in the MOOC coursework.
I think, right. The MOOC courses do have canned quizzes where there's correct answers. But Open Study has, and I'm sorry. So MOOCs like Udacity and Coursera, they have built into their videos, they have interactive quizzes, which are immediate feedback, essentially. But Open Study is obviously, they're questions that come from all over, and there may not be one right answer. So,
yeah, and the other thing is that frequently it was a great way to debug the program if students always get hung up in a certain area or a certain kind of question or a certain part of the program. And does the MOOC get any feedback from your organization about, where?
Okay. So when we work with book providers or when we work with organizations and institutions, then we can report back at a stunning level of detail because it's a technology play. So we can report and tell you which are the individuals who are asking questions, what are they asking questions on, how does the questions that they've asked, how does it compare with the world of questions that are asked? So if you're teaching a chemistry course, how many of your individual students are asking questions on the mole, and how do you compare that with the rest of the world? Or, so things, and
actually give them content.
We can give you content feedback, especially if you're in a course-related content feedback, and we can give you specific student-related feedback. We can time it and say, of the 25 students in your course, only 10 of them have logged in, where's the rest of them? And that would be like an early warning system. So we can slice it and dice it any way you want. And we're working with the different providers to figure out what's better. This gentleman over there in the back.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, maybe I'm just on my side up here and I'm taking a look here. There doesn't seem to be any way to browse that I've discovered so far. I can ask a question, but the first thing I see is this pop-up that says select a subject. Nothing that I teach, like Wi-Fi, Cisco, networking, voice, VMware, is an existing subject. So if I wanted to browse previous questions or information on a particular subject, is there a way I can do that?
Right. So the question, sorry. So the question was, how can you browse or look for specific subjects like networking or Cisco networking, Wi-Fi? Okay. We aggregate questions into broad topics. So your particular topic would be under computer science. So you would need to go to computer science, and that's where we aggregate all the questions, all the courses that have any relevance to computer science. So you would have to pick a topic that's most relevant to you, or most relevant to your study course.
Create some aggregations with some appropriate keywords.
You can talk to us about it. We can create it for you. So, yeah. And we sort of do that, yeah.
Scalability of this, if you've got tens of thousands of students enrolling for a course, don't know the subject matter to begin with, and they're asking questions, tens of thousands of questions. How do you match up the people who know the answers? I mean, there's hundreds of those people, but tens of thousands of questioners. I mean, how do you know whether this will synchronize? And also the time delay between when you ask a question and when hundreds of experts might respond. How do you measure that or deal with that?
So the question is, how do you scale both matching of answers and to questions, and as we grow to tens and thousands? We have over 500,000 unique visitors a month today, or maybe yesterday. So, and we're growing. We have over 2,000 questions a day. And the way it works, and this is the marvel of the technology, is people select their area of expertise. So these individuals that you're seeing there have chosen to be in a mathematics subgroup, just as there are individuals who will be in computer science or history or whatever. The responsiveness, the synchronicity of responses comes when there's enough people in that group. So in mathematics, or in fact the MOOC, there are 1,000 registered users at any given time. If there's 25 even, then you start to get a good response rate. In mathematics, it's almost instantaneous, or it's even better, because we have at any given time over 200 people online. So the scale is what makes it all happen beautifully in the way it should. So the flip side, if you were in a subject that was really esoteric, like, give me an esoteric subject without offending anyone.
Analog and algorithms in computer science.
And there was nobody who knew very much about it, then you might post a question and it might take a long time for someone to answer. That is true. So the trick comes in building enough folks in there that populate this, that are online at any given time. And so if you have a MOOC and you have thousands of people and they're all registered in log
and algorithms,
then if there's 25 of them online at any given time, it's good, it's great, it just works. So.
I have to stop it. Sorry. Give her applause.
Thank you so much.